And welcome to another episode of Expert Speak. I am Michael DeLon. Today I'm talking with Dr. Vicki Rackner. Dr. Vicki, welcome to my program. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. It's a delight being here with you, Michael.
You are so welcome. Dr. Vicki is a return guest on Expert Speak. That is a rare occurrence, but we are talking today about her practice around thriving doctors and helping doctors build wealth and really have the life that we all want. And the question you and I were talking about, Vicki, was, why is it that we have such a hard time building wealth? And that's one of the questions we're going to dive into. But as we get there, tell me, you work with a lot of doctors, a lot of financial advisors, a lot of people in lots of areas. Tell us, how in the world did you get doing what you're doing today? Let's start there, and then we'll just dive in.
All right. Well, as I say, if my life had a bumper sticker, it would say, heal thyself. I go
Uh-huh.
through things for myself, struggle, figure things out, and lend a helping hand to the people who are behind me. So when I was a graduate student in physics, I fainted on my way to the bathroom. I had
Wow.
internal bleeding. And by the time the surgeons got in there, almost half of my blood volume was in my pelvis. So I thought
Wow.
when I said goodbye to my fiance, it was like the final goodbye. And I was so grateful to wake up. I knew I was going to be a doctor and save other people's lives like my own had been saved. And I
Wow.
was fortunate enough to be able to do that. I loved my practice. But I had a family caregiving opportunity I wanted to step into. I took a leave from my practice. When I was home folding laundry, a lawyer called me, asked me if I'd be willing to look at a medical malpractice lawsuit, and I said yes. So, for about a year, I got a real insider view about where medical care goes off track.
Oh.
And after about a year, I was at a decision point. Do I go back to operating or do I do something else? And I thought to myself, how many people have been a person in a life-threatening circumstance, a person who saves people's lives, somebody who understands caregiving, and somebody who's seen where care went off track? So in 2000, I decided to do something really bold. I decided to put down my scalpel and pick up a pen and a paper and a microphone, helping doctors and patients collaborate more effectively to get better medical outcomes. I thought,
Mm-hmm.
this is going to be awesome. But I struggled and struggled and struggled.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
kept on investing in courses and mentors and coaches. And sometimes I kind of felt like an alien. But I was over in Europe speaking, and I went to plug in my laptop and had this aha moment. You see, you can't just plug your laptop in directly in Europe because Europe
Yeah.
is wired differently. You need an adapter. I thought, that is it. I, as a doctor, am wired differently than business people. If I could create an adapter, I can plug in and get better business results. That's exactly what I did. So, my secret sauce is building a bridge between the world of business and the world of medicine. And you know what separates those two in the most fundamental way? It's
No.
relationship with money.
Oh, really?
Well, think about it. We all want to be successful, right?
Yeah, of
For
course.
you and all of your clients, the measure of success is ultimately profitability.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sure that you celebrate when your authors say, "Oh my God, I paid for this book after about a month, and
Yeah.
here's the growth I've experienced as a result of doing that." Well, if an orthopedic surgeon walked into the surgeon's lounge and said, "Oh my God, this has been such a great year. My revenue is up 30%," he'd be sent to a psychiatrist. It's because doctors measure their success by service, by impact. Now, you need both. You need
Right.
both profit and service, but the primary focus for physicians is service. And money feels like a little dirty. So doctors have a very different relationship with money. I got
Interesting.
interested in that. So I now talk a lot about doctors and money, which brings us back to the question, why do so many smart people struggle
Mm-hmm.
to build wealth?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And that's kind of it's really an aha moment, an insight, because we see the doctors, driving their Porsches and all their cars and their houses and things. But what I'm hearing from you is that's not necessarily the driving force behind most of them, because that is a byproduct of their service to their patients and things. But not all of us, not all of them can really get to that building wealth aspect because of the fact that we have this thing between our ears called the brain, which really many times it can take us to great heights. It can pull us back as well and limit us in lots of ways. What have you learned about our brain, the way we function, the way we deal with wealth in that relationship? What is it that relationship needs help with?
Well, I'll tell you, I just watched an interview with Oprah where she talked about her weight loss journey. She's been wildly successful in every part of her life except for her weight, right?
Mm,
And she's talked about how she had embarrassment and shame and self-blame. Like, what is wrong with me? How am I broken that I can't master this? And then she got introduced to GLP-1 agonists. And she said the first time she took it, it's like her brain changed. Like
mm,
something happened in her brain. All of the food chatter just quieted. And suddenly, for the first time in her life, she had the experience of having enough, of being full.
yeah.
And as I thought and listened, I thought, her losing weight is very much like the challenges of smart people building net worth. You want to hit a number.
Yes.
And for Oprah, it seems the logical thing that if you want to lose weight, control your food. Well, if you want to build a net worth, you want to control your money. But what Oprah told us was the key. Einstein says you don't solve problems on the level at which you're created. So Oprah was no longer focusing on the money. Now she was talking about an intervention with
Mm-hmm.
her brain.
Yes.
Now there is no drug to help you build wealth, but we have something else that's just as powerful. We can do a money mindset makeover. We can actually change our brain with our thoughts and with
Mm-hmm.
awareness about how the brain works. The main challenge that people have is letting their human brain go unmanaged.
Oh, I love that. That is so cool. It's like it's rogue. It goes out on its own. And it's really interesting because we use our brain to set financial goals and things, and then almost subconsciously, because of our relationship with money and our past, it's kind of like Oprah or many of us who've tried to lose weight, right? We immediately go from an abundance mindset to a scarcity mindset. And we may not even understand it or realize it. And that's because we're not putting enough attention and focus on it. And I think that's part of what you're talking about as a makeover is it's time to do some things differently that really we all have control of, right?
Exactly. So I love to start in a place of self-compassion.
Hmm.
So let's take a look at the brain that we inherited. Like for most of history, we were hunters and gatherers, right? We were both predator and prey. And in order for our ancestors to lead to us, they had to stay alive. They had to stay alive long enough to pass along their genes and then grow their kids who would then create the next generation. Okay, when there's predators out there, the number one thing that the brain is worried about is right now in this moment, am I safe or am I in danger? And if we're
Yes.
in danger, the brain has this miraculous mechanism to get us back to safety by fighting or fleeing or
Yeah.
freezing. Um, and that's done really well. And then the question is, well, what would inspire our hunter-gatherer ancestors to leave the safety of the cave? And the brain has an answer for that. It's programmed with these urges to seek pleasure and avoid pain. And
Mm.
because food was so scarce, our brain has a hack of creating habits When we create habits, we don't have to think about it. You probably don't have to think about where you turn left on your way to the office, right?
That's right.
It's a habit. And once we comply with the patterns of these habits, we're considered safe. When we don't comply, our body offers us a little urge to comply. Well, then about 10,000 years ago, the agrarian culture popped up in all sorts of different places. Some think that our prefrontal cortex, this planning brain that you were talking about, Mike,
Mm-hmm.
finally came on board. And that allows us to not just focus on the here and now, it offers to help us imagine a different future and then break that down so we can create steps to actually get there.
There. Yeah.
So that's the part of our brain that can imagine the life that we want to create, the life of wealth. But here's the deal. Most of us spend a lot of our time in this paleo brain, seeking pleasure and avoiding pain, or in our reptile brain, escaping from danger. So we bring all of our brains with us as we manage money. And the reality is that right now, money is the best representation we have for safety. Like without
Mm-hmm.
money, we are unsafe. We can't feed ourselves. We can't clothe ourselves. We can't find shelter. So money can be both the windfall, like the
Uh-huh.
hunter-gatherer who came upon this huge field of berries, or it can be the saber-toothed tiger when we're dealing with financial losses.
Yeah, yeah, those are great. Those are great word pictures. I think everybody grabs onto that because it really is. So let's. What is this mindset makeover? I can't even say it. How do you help people, physicians specifically, to come in and start really making over the mind to changing how they think and feel, maybe about what they have been programmed? I mean, unpack this a little bit. It's super intriguing.
Okay, so money is a pretty recent phenomenon, right? We've only had money for about 3,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, the brain is ancient. It has these well-established pathways, and it has a hard time keeping up with money. So we make a lot of our day-to-day choices with our paleo brain, seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. You put people in functional MRIs, and that's the part of the brain that lights up. When we're in danger, we go to the reptile brain in the basement and can fight, flee, and freeze. So the very first thing I help doctors do is understand this is the software that's managing money. It doesn't have a
Mm.
lot of experience with money. It's using these ancient circuits to make choices about things. The goal in order to build true wealth, this money mindset makeover, is this ability to witness your brain at work
Mm-hmm.
and, depending on where you are, be able to elevate to the planning brain. So let me just give you an
Okay.
example.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
In the early part of the pandemic, I was on my weekly outing to the grocery store. I made a beeline to the paper goods aisles, and the aisles were empty on both sides. No, nothing there.
Yep.
And suddenly, I was frozen like a deer in the headlight. My heart was beating quickly. I held this feeling of anxiety. And what was happening was that my danger alert had been sounded. Like my reptile brain thought that my life was at risk.
Yeah.
So I was in this freeze response. And fortunately, I've got enough experience witnessing my mind and body so that I could say, oh, my autonomic nervous system has prepared me to get back to safety because it thinks I'm about to die. So,
Right.
right there in the grocery store, I was able to breathe deeply to bring down my heart rate. And I was able to say to myself, you are not going to die without toilet paper.
Yeah.
So I was able to get out of my reptile brain and go back up to my planning brain. If I had not recognized that, I can tell you what happened because it's happened to me in the past. I would have been in this freeze response, this physiologic state. I would have gone home. Work would have felt overwhelming because my nervous system was still preparing to fight, flee, or freeze. And my
Hmm.
entire day would be different. Now, what happens to people when they lose a job, when they experience losses? They think that they're dying.
That's right.
Of course, they're going to want to fight or flee or freeze.
Yeah.
This is a normal response. So, just understanding something simple like that
Hmm.
can really help people treat themselves with self compassion, understand the importance of experiencing yourself as safe, and then construct your life so that
Hmm.
you do feel safe.
That's good. I like that because you've got to recognize what's going on. And that's what you did in that moment. And so many times people don't even do that and they're running off their emotions. Something happens and it's like, no, we don't have to do that. The emotions are real. We have to recognize what's going on and then think about, okay, what should I do? I breathe. I assess the situation and I can choose a different response. Going all the way back to, I mean, Stephen Covey 30 years ago in his book, Seven Habits, right? Talking about integrity in the moment of choice and what separates us from animals and things. But he's like, you have the ability to choose in every situation. And that's exactly what you did. Looking at there's no toilet paper. What am I going to do? I'm going to choose. And if you apply that to how we our relationship with money, it's going to allow you to make better decisions so that you can build wealth without sending a torpedo into your portfolio.
Exactly. And it's hard to lose money.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to see losses. And the way that you respond to the loss itself can either make a bad situation worse or improve things. When you are in this danger state, this physiologic state where you're fighting or fleeing or freezing, you
Mm-hmm.
are going to make things worse every time. It feels logical. It feels like, okay, I'm going to double down on this dumb doctor deal or this
Yeah.
terrible investment, or, I'm going to leave my Fidelity envelopes unopened. It's
Yeah.
so so just being able to recognize when this is happening is
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah, it is. And you help people understand because the recognition, and I would love this if we talked about this a tad, is it more emotional than mental at the beginning normally, or does have you been able to figure?
Yeah. So this is not about the brain. It's
Okay.
about the body.
Now, okay, so let's pause there because I think a lot of people, probably physicians as well, are so intellectual and so smart that we discount our emotions, and that gets us into trouble.
It most certainly does. There are a lot of people who view the body as a mechanism to carry around our brains.
That's right.
Guilty, right? But getting reconnected to these feelings, because here's the deal, Michael. Our autonomic nervous system is in a split second making a choice about whether we're in danger and we need to get back to safety. We are not in conscious control of this. I
Yeah,
did not plan on having a freeze response at the grocery store.
yeah,
This is
right.
something my body did,
Yeah,
but we can learn the skills to re-regulate this dysregulated nervous system. And it's not that
yes,
hard. I mean, you
that's
can
right.
learn to do it. But the first thing is to recognize it.
Yeah, no, I love that because if you don't recognize it, you're off the charts. But once you recognize it and you respond properly, then you realize, oh, I need some regulation. And that's different from every person. But I love the fact of putting the fidelity statement over there, and I'm not going to look at it because oh, that's a totally emotional response, right?
Exactly.
Because the data is not changing inside that envelope. It
Right.
is what it is. The question is, how are you going to respond to that data, whatever that data is, good, bad, or indifferent? And that's what you get a choice to do with how you do your mental makeover. But is that fair?
Exactly. That's exactly right. And the thing that I want to help people avoid is this thing that Oprah was talking about. What's wrong with me? Am I broken? I know I should be opening that envelope. I
Yeah.
know I shouldn't just be pulling all my money out of the market. I know I should not get mad about the economic state, but it's our brain trying to serve us.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so do you want to hear the other way that people really get in trouble with money?
Oh, I would love that.
All right. So we spend most of our days with our unmanaged brain, avoiding pain and seeking pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
There is a wonderful book called The Dopamine Nation by a psychiatrist who basically says, we are living in a world of ultra processed pleasure. Like, I'd get pleasure if I went and ate an apple, but
Right.
I'd get much more pleasure if I were eating an apple cake. So, what has happened? We are able to refine and hyper concentrate this pleasure. So, like if you had poppy seeds, you probably got them in the kitchen and use them for cooking and baking. But you take these poppy seeds and process them, and you get heroin, which is
Mm.
highly addictive. So, this desire to seek pleasure and avoid pain is part of our programming. We need to make peace with it, but our environment has changed so radically that it's really hard to avoid the temptation to just seek pleasure and seek pleasure and seek pleasure.
Yeah.
Further, a lot of people use these pleasures to numb feelings. So
Yeah.
you're avoiding the pain of unwanted feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a huge temptation that is derailing a lot of people because think about what people do when they're stressed. And I'm going to out myself. I love retail therapy. I think it's
Uh-huh.
so effective. And now I don't have to leave my house. I can just go on Amazon
That's
and
right.
buy whatever I want. And the thing is, it works.
Yeah.
It makes me feel better.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like heroin makes you feel better
Right.
immediately.
That's
So
right.
just recognizing that we've got a real uphill battle in our current environment.
Yeah. So how do you help people? When a physician is maybe they're scratching their head or they're going, "Oh, that's me. I see some signs maybe." What can they do? I mean, how do you work with physicians to help them go from where they are to, I mean, because this is probably not an overnight pill thing,
Oh,
but it
it is
doesn't have to
not.
be a lifetime counseling thing either. There's got to be a process where you help them really get hold of this, right?
Absolutely. So here's where we start. We start with the idea that money is a tool to
Mm-hmm.
create the life you want. So I've got this idea of true wealth, and it's an intersection between a satisfied life, a rich life where you have confidence that you can pay your monthly bills this month, and a wealthy life, which means that you have confidence that you can pay your monthly bills even if your earned income ends today. And
Mm.
ideally, you have enough wealth to last you for life.
Yeah.
So we begin with this idea of a satisfied life.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want for yourself and for your family? Like, why are we doing all of this stuff?
Right.
Because, restraining my retail therapy, it's work. Like, why do I want to do this?
Yeah.
So it begins there. What's working in your life right now? What is it that you really want for yourself and for your family? What are
Mm-hmm.
your values? What what what's the North Star guiding your choices? And then I've got one more little trick up my sleeve, which is helping people understand their money archetype. This is
Hmm.
their innate behavior around
Okay.
money. It's kind of like being left-handed or right-handed. I
Okay.
mean, once you know if you're left-handed or right-handed, you can deal with circumstances. But like if you were just alone with a checkbook, this is probably how things would go based on your money archetype.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with that understanding about where we are, who we are. The idea is to live as your authentic self. So you mentioned
Right.
like doctors and cars.
Yeah.
Doctors are very, very fortunate to have extensive income. Um, but the problem is that we all have this desire to fit in, right? It goes
Right.
back to our hunter-gatherer days. Like if you were asked to leave the tribe, that was almost certain death. So we have these biologic desires to fit in. So a lot of people spend to fit in. So
Right.
there's a reason everyone's doing the things that they are doing. But part of having clarity about your satisfied life is you no longer really care about what other people think of you.
Yes.
You care about what you think about you.
Yeah, that's so good. I remember years ago, this is 30 years ago when my wife and I were just getting married and just getting started. We're in a church and had lots of doctor friends, right? And one specific doctor and his wife, they had a couple kids, but they lived very modestly. They drove really used old cars, right? But when we engaged with them in conversation, it became very apparent why they made those changes and why she was a homeschooling mom versus sending their kids to the private school, right? They had their values laid out. They knew why. And right next door was another doctor who had the big house and the boats and the 4x4s, and he had his own why. Not that one's better or the other. It was just a really neat dichotomy to go, money's a tool. That's all it is. But you have to understand, what are you wanting to know?
Right,
What are you going to do with this tool?
right. And I also will comment that there is the difference between acting rich and being rich. Now,
Yeah, that's
you're from
very
the
good.
South, right?
Yep.
So there's this expression in Texas, all hat and no cattle.
There
That's
you go.
acting rich.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people who act rich at their own expense of being rich and building wealth.
Yeah. Very much. And if you act rich, it normally is going to catch up with you because
Yes.
those are the physicians who are driving the cars and the houses and all that, and they're living paycheck to paycheck. And when something happens, they're the ones that go off the deep end because they're not being authentic, what you said earlier, to who they are, and their relationship with money has not been, they have not fixed that. They've not merged that relationship. They've been running from it.
Right. I remember going to a family event, and there was a new family member by marriage that I had never met before. It was a retired orthopedic surgeon and his wife. He drove up in a Rolls Royce. They were impeccably dressed. They talked about their amazing vacations. And I remember driving back home, and my then husband said to me, orthopedic surgeon, it looks like that's a really good idea. Is it too late to change? But when he died, this harsh truth came forward. He left his wife nothing but debt. He
Yeah.
was living a lie.
Yeah.
And you never know from the outside what's really happening on the inside. So just sticking to your own knitting,
Yeah.
knowing what's important to you. And I think, being the millionaire next door, not being loud or ostentatious about wealth, but just quietly living your satisfied life and quietly building wealth. That's probably the best way to go.
It really is. I think it is. So how does somebody out there reach out to you? What kind of work can you do with them? What would be their next step to find out more about you and this pathway to a wealthy life, not just a rich life?
Well, I want to invite you to go to my Thriving Doctors YouTube channel. I'd be
Mm-hmm.
happy to give you the link.
Sure.
And I am doing a lot of podcasting now about these very ideas in the
Mm-hmm.
true wealth way. That's probably the best way for them to learn more.
I love it. Okay, so we'll have that in the show notes. And if you're just too fast for that, go to YouTube and look at Thriving Doctors and Dr. Vicki Rackner because we have just scratched the surface. And what I mean, you've spent Dr. Vicki years working with this concept, and you've got multiple books that you've published. You've helped lots of people, and you're bringing this all together in a new way to help people really, especially physicians, really understand the relationship with wealth so that they can move from just not just that satisfied life, not just a rich life, but a wealthy life. And that brings not just satisfaction with money, but it goes deeper because now you're living out your purpose, your meaning, and everything gets better. And so, yeah, check out Dr. Vicki Rackner, her YouTube channel. We're going to have a link to that in the show notes. And go back and just go back and listen to this whole thing again because now that you see where we've gone, I'm bet as a listener, if you go back and re-listen to this episode, you're going to hear a few nuggets that you probably missed the first time, and then reach out to Dr. Vicki and just follow what she's doing, engage with her. Obviously, she is a fireball of great information, and she's here to serve you and to help you have a better relationship with money and really have true wealth in your life. What is that? Go find out as you follow Dr. Vicki.
Thank
Doc,
you so much. And I just want to remind people you don't have to be a doctor to
that's
take
right.
advantage of these ideas. These are sort of some universal truths.
Absolutely. They apply to everybody because we're all the same at one level, right?
Yes.
Regardless of what we do. So go follow her. And if you're, yeah, just start getting the information so that you can have a mental mindset makeover. I think that's what you called it. Um,
Money mindset makeover. You're
money
exactly
mindset
right.
makeover because we all just kind of put our brains on neutral or autopilot, and we need to really take control so that we can really build a wealthy life. Dr. Vicki, thank you for being my guest today. Thanks for what you're doing. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Always a delight to speak with you, Michael.
Thank you. And thank you for listening to Experts Speak. Tune in again next time for another great episode. Take care. God bless.